Hi everyone, I'm Amy and welcome to a 1-hour myofascial release class where we're going to be targeting the shoulders, the neck, the traps, the pecs, a lot of the muscles that we hold on to tension to in the upper body. And we're going to need a few tools for this one. So our very first myofascial release technique that we're going to be doing, we'll be using this RAD Centre. So I know a lot of you out there don't have this one. So in the meantime, feel free to take what you do have, maybe your green RAD Round or your recovery round. And I had mentioned getting a towel, a hand towel or something small like that. And all you're gonna do there is fold that towel up and rest it on top of the ball. And we'll accomplish a really similar sensation to being on this RAD Centre, but in the future, if you'd like to do this again when we're all done, go ahead and get one of these. It's just called the RAD Centre, and you can blow it up to really any consistency, and I kind of have mine here, not entirely blown up. So if you've got one out there, feel free to let some of the air out of it before we begin. And then we're gonna start here with taking the center and we're gonna place it right below the rib cage. So the target muscle here is going to end up being the diaphragm. So we're gonna lie prone on our bellies and get right here into the diaphragm. So let's go ahead and start. A nice place to start here is a Sphinx pose. So a Sphinx pose for my yogis out there is elbows under the shoulders, forearms on the ground, and just a relaxed feeling in the low back. And so why don't we pause there for just a moment and just notice how that feels in the body. Maybe close your eyes. And take just a moment before we really set the tone for the practice to notice the rhythm and the pace of your own natural breathing. No judgment, just noticing if it feels quick or slow. Noticing if it feels deep in the body or shallow. Noticing if there's any rhythm, maybe a lack of consistency with the way that we're breathing. Let's grab hold of that RAD Centre and place it right where I showed you there, right below the xiphoid process or your sternum, right below the bottom of the sternum there. And we'll stay here in this Sphinx pose. And I know for a lot of us this one can be somewhat uncomfortable at first. So just take a few moments to just let the body adapt to being here. Again, closing the eyes. And just noticing whatever comes up here. So you might notice the sensation of the heart beating. Noticing if the breath is changing at all. And then just begin to count the breath here. Noticing how long it's taking you to inhale and how long it's taking you to exhale. And let's deepen the breath just a little bit. So inhaling maybe for the count of 4, and then exhaling for the count of 8. And now with each exhalation, see if you can allow yourself to melt a little bit further into this pose. It's feeling pretty good here, and you want to give a little little bit more intensity a try, but really always remember that less is more. We don't want it to feel super intense, but if you think you have more space, let's go ahead and rest the forehead either down right on your mat, or maybe folding your hands over each other. You could also slide a pillow underneath your head. And just breathe, and remember with each inhale, we're counting to approximately 4. Each exhale releasing for the count of 8. And now as we breathe, with each inhale, press the abdomen into the ball. And then see if you can relax just a little bit more as you exhale. Notice if you're clenching or holding on any place else in the body. And just relax the glutes. Maybe relax the muscles of the face. We have just a few more breaths here, and I'm going to give you just one more option. So if you'd like to try, or just another sensation, let's go ahead and come back to that Sphinx position. Tuck our toes and lift our thighs up off the mat. And now as you inhale again, press the ball away from you with the abdomen. And as you exhale, see if you can melt just a little bit more over top of it. You only have about 3 more breaths here. Good. And now slowly come off of the ball, and I want you to just lay down onto your bellies and just take a moment to observe how you're feeling. So just closing your eyes and relaxing. Notice if your breathing feels maybe a little more effortless. And just noticing if you feel overall more relaxed with doing just that very first myofascial release technique. And just 2 more breaths here. Good. And now let's slowly press our way up to hands and knees, and we'll take a few rounds of cat-cow. So as we inhale here, we're just dropping the belly, relaxing the shoulders, maybe gazing up and just stretching out that part of the abdomen where the ball just was. And then as we exhale, we're rounding the spine, dropping the head. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the gaze. Exhale, round the spine, drop the head. Good. And now come back to neutral, and we're going to work with a little bit of movement in our upper body, our thoracic spine. So what I'd like you to do here is really focus on pressing the base of the thumb knuckle and the pointer finger knuckle into the mat. And then as you inhale, press the floor away from you without rounding anything except for the upper back. So we're going to protract the scapula and then retract the scapula as you inhale and melt the heart down. So it's a really subtle movement here, but I just want us to notice what's going on in the upper back, if we have any areas that feel stuck or tense. And even from side to side with this scapular movement here, if you're noticing anything different from one side to the next. Good, let's just do 1 more round. Good. All right, right, so let's come to sitting on our left hip here. And for this next one, we're going to get into the infraspinatus. So this is a muscle that's on the back side of the scapula. So that's that shoulder blade that we were just moving on the back side of the body there. And for this one, I'm going to use the recovery round. It's a little bit softer, but you can use whatever you have. If it's a little bit too intense, feel free to grab that towel that you have nearby and place it over top of the ball. So just so you can have a visual here of where this is going to end up. So right on top of the shoulder blade. So this muscle lines the back side of the shoulder blade here, and we're going to be right up on top of it. So let's go ahead again and get down onto our left hip. And we'll start just laying down on our sides. Take the ball into your right hand and just get comfortable here. If you'd like to bring a pillow, or if you have a yoga block or a RAD block nearby, you can definitely use that underneath your head instead of your hand, or you can change partway through. So we're going to take the ball here, and I'm just going to lean back and slide the ball right behind the shoulder blade there, and then just come back. So for me, this one's pretty intense. So I'm just going to take a moment to come back to my breath. And if you're not feeling a whole lot here, feel free to kind of just move it around to an area where you might feel tender, but where the pressure is not too intense. And then let's relax into this one. So closing the eyes. And coming back to our breathing of inhaling for the count of 4. Exhaling for the count of 8. So as we sit here and just breathe and allow the body to adapt to the shape of the ball, just make sure that we're not bringing tension to any other place in the body. And just a few more breaths before we kind of move around on the ball just a little bit. And because this is so tender on me, this is one of my favorite places to go to. All right, so now we're just going to maybe lean back just a little bit until you feel a new area of tension, a new sensation. But remember, we never really want anything to be sharp, shooting, painful. So if that's happening, just adjust the ball to some place where it's not feeling like that. Let's relax into this one for about 5 more breaths. Keeping that pace of the breath really steady. Good. And now to come off of this one, you could either reach back behind you if you have the flexibility in the arm and remove the ball, or you can just go ahead and come off it, reach underneath you, and we're going to lie down onto our backs for a moment here. So I think a really interesting part of doing myofascial release is just really allowing yourself to take in the changes that are being made, to notice how the body's feeling. And so just noticing here, for most of you, probably that left shoulder is feeling flatter or closer to your mat than your right shoulder. Your right shoulder might feel a little bit more curved up. But notice the effects also up and down the chain. So notice what you feel in your low back on that left side versus the right side. Noticing what you feel in the left side of the neck versus the right side. Let's take one more breath. And let's go ahead, come back up again, and we'll get to that other side. So we're going to do a decent amount of kind of back and forth today. Remember, just to kind of point this out for you again, we're going to shoot for the back of the shoulder blade there now on the right side. So coming down onto our right side and propping your head into your hand. I'm just going to roll back or even just lift the side of the rib cage up there and slide the ball into place. Good. So once you've found that place, all we're going to do is try to settle in, try to relax into it. Just giving the tissues time to adapt before we try anything else. So with your left hand right now, anything at all, any place that it feels good. So for me, I've got mine resting on my hip here. You could rest it in front of you if you feel like you need a little support and you're kind of leaning forward. You could even kind of drape it over your head and relax into it here. Maybe close the eyes again so we can really tune in on a deep physical layer to what we're feeling. Maybe noticing the body getting a little heavier the longer we're here. The ability to let gravity just take over. Let the body just really sink into the ball. Just doing a self-check from time to time, making sure that we're not squeezing the eyebrows together or clenching the jaw. And slowly, unless you're already feeling enough, slowly begin to lean back just a little bit. And when you experience a little bit more sensation, maybe just pause there. You could also rock forward and backward right over the tissue that way if that felt good to you. Let's just take 3 more breaths here. And then again, reach under you or behind you, release the ball, lie down onto your backs just so we can take in the effects of what we just did. Maybe constructive rest in the legs with the feet out wide and the knees knocking in. Maybe even noticing along the way here how this deep and steady breathing is becoming a little bit easier to do. Okay, so next up, we're going to work on the front of the body. So we're going to be working on the pecs a little bit here, and we're going to start actually on the left side. So in just a moment I'll be lying prone on my belly, and I may use this block. I'll give you an option on how to do that in just a minute. I have this RAD block here. If you have a yoga block nearby, you could use that as well, or again, that folded up towel, you could use that to place the ball on if you need to. But what we're going to do here is take the ball and maybe just kind of take your fingertips and feel your clavicle bone there on the left side. And what we're going to do is just drop down off of the clavicle and place the ball there. So it's not going to be over towards the center of the sternum. We don't want it over here closer towards the armpit where we have this bundle of nerves that could become irritated by pressing too heavily into the ball. So kind of almost right in the center there between the sternum and the armpit, maybe just a little bit more towards the armpit. So we're going to come to lying flat on our bellies. And you might start out at first just placing the ball and lying prone here on your belly and bringing your arms out to a goalpost shape, turning your head away from the ball. For me, I'm not feeling a ton right there, so I'm going to prop myself up a little bit. So I'm going to take my yoga block or my RAD block and place the ball right on the corner of the block. And then I'm going to drape myself right over top there, so just a little maneuvering. Here we go. Again, you can use that towel if you have one. And if you are propped up on a block, you might want to grab a pillow or something to place underneath your forehead, but we are going to drop our head down. And I'm just going to rest my head right on my hand. Again, it's nice to just take a few moments to settle in here. So we're in no rush with any of these. We want to take the time to allow the body to relax into it, to allow some of that tension to just start to fade away the longer we lie here. Let gravity do the job for you here, so no effort on holding the body up, just completely allowing yourself to melt into this. And then feel free to stay right where you're at, and we're going to invite in a little movement here. So you can keep your head down, propped up on whatever you've got it on there, or you can lift it up, but try not to strain the neck. So we'll keep a neutral position in the neck here. And then lift that left arm up. If that's intense enough, just stay right where you're at, or you can attempt to start to straighten the arm. And then bring the elbow back in space. So there's some really subtle movement here. Inhale to stretch and straighten. Exhale to bend the elbow. And if you're doing that movement with me, let's just do one last time. And release and relax for a few more breaths here. All right, so slide the ball and your prop away. We're just going to lie flat on our bellies, turning our head in the opposite direction. And again, just taking notice, noticing any change. Noticing for many of us how the left shoulder feels much more relaxed and closer to your mat than your right. And again, noticing any changes down or up the chain. So on the front and the back of the body, maybe noticing less tension in the low back or the neck or even the hips on that left side. And now let's come up and do the other side. So you can lie flat on your belly and just go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to flip around here so it's easier to see. But again, you might start with the ball just right there on the mat, or if you know right away that it's going to benefit you to take it up another level, go ahead and grab a block or your prop, whatever you've got nearby. Find that place that feels good to you. And then see if you can relax into it. It's also interesting, I think, to notice, so for me this side's feeling it a whole lot more, but just interesting to notice and to kind of think back to our posture, our movement patterns, maybe have a little curiosity about one side, why one side is feeling a lot more than the other. And then just relax into it. And trying again not to fight gravity here, letting gravity do the job for us. See if you can really relax the head, relax the neck, relax the jaw. And again, feeling free to stay right there, or lift the hand and the forearm up off the ground and just start that gentle movement, that gentle sliding the arm forward, maybe stretching it completely straight, and then bringing the elbow back, and we'll just do 3 rounds of that. One more time. And then coming back and again relaxing the arm down, taking about 3 more breaths here. Release the ball and any prop that you have there, and just lie flat on your belly. Turn your head in the opposite direction. And just allow yourself to notice. Bringing the hands underneath you. Support yourself as you press your way up. And we'll come to seated. Now for this one, I'm going to be using just this green RAD Round here. Again, you can use whatever you have, whatever feels good. We're going to do a little bit for the neck. Just stay with me. So let's take our fingertips actually, let's start again with the left side. So right to the left of the sternum, once again dropping down below the clavicle, but this time a little bit closer to the SC joint. So a little bit closer to where the sternum and the clavicle meet. So you might even take your fingertips and kind of feel around there, and just down diagonally, maybe an inch from where the sternum and the clavicle meet, we're going to take the ball and place it right there. And then we'll just take our left hand, gently press inward. So you're going to press on the ball gently, and then I'm going to take my right hand and just place it right on top of my left here. And then as you press the ball in and back, we're going to isometrically drag the ball down. So the ball will stay exactly where it's at, but you're going to feel the skin start to stretch down just a little bit. And then from here, drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. Good. So what we're feeling here is probably for a lot of us, you might even feel it back towards the levator or just the side of the neck. But in just a moment, we're going to get to the SCM here. So keep breathing, keep relaxing here. Keep that forward or backward pressure, into the ball. Good. And now keep your head angled exactly the way that it is, and just bring the back of your head back in space a few inches. And here's where we're going to start to feel that ropey-like muscle more towards the front side of the neck, getting a really nice stretch. And we won't stay in this one too long. And just a few more breaths. Carefully lift your head back up, release the hands and the ball, close the eyes for just a moment. And just noticing again how that feels. Good. And now let's do the other side. So again, you might just kind of feel around, feel the sternum, feel the clavicle, feel that joint right where the two meet. And then drop down diagonally, maybe even less than an inch down. Take the ball, place it right there. We'll place the right hand on top of the ball, the left hand on top of the right hand, and press back gently. And then create that dragging down sensation. So again, the ball stays exactly where it's at, and you're just pulling the skin down almost. And yeah, drop your left ear towards your left shoulder now. And again, with all of these, just notice how one side feels usually a little more limited than the other. Just let the weight of the head be heavy here. Keep that gentle pressure in and down. Notice where you're feeling the sensation of stretch here. Good. And now again, keeping the angle of the neck, pull the back of your head back in space. Yeah, and start to feel more of the front side of the neck muscles getting a nice stretch here. It's also one of my favorites. Just a few more breaths. Carefully lift the head, relax the hands down, take just a moment. And so everything else we're going to do is going to be down on our back. So just bring around whatever you need, pillow, block, blanket, whatever you have nearby. I'm going to use the green RAD Round for 3 more spots, and that's all we're going to do today. So those spots are going to be the rhomboids, which when we were doing those scapular movements in our cat-cow type pose, we're going to get right in there, and I'll point it out in just a second. We'll move up from there to the traps, and from there we'll move more to the the supraspinatus, which is one of the rotator cuff muscles, and you might feel it more in the levator or the muscle on the back side here that helps to elevate the scapula as well. So let me just give you a little visual here of where we're going to do this. So the first spot we're going to target here is the rhomboids, so right in between the shoulder blades. And we want to make sure here that we're not on the bone. So we're not going to be right on the spine itself. We're not going to be right on the shoulder blade itself. We're going to be in between the two. So that's spot one. From there, we're just going to kind of roll up just a little bit more so that we're more towards the traps, so that we're more towards this upper border of the scapula. And then from there, just a little bit further up. So that's all we're doing kind of is bordering the muscles around the scapula there. So we've been starting on the left side, so I'm going to start here on the left side. But what I want us to do is first we're going to reinforce some of that opening that we just did in the pecs and the chest. So let's start sitting on our left hip and just kind of prop yourself up for just a moment like we did in the one for the infraspinatus. So now we're going to take that ball, reach up and back behind us, find a spot again on the inner border of the scapula, not on the spine, where you perceive those rhomboids to be. Keep your legs where they're at, and then start to rotate your upper back down towards the ground. And then just bring those arms out to this goalpost shape. So for me here, and I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but for me here, my right arm right now is hovering off the floor. It's not touching. So let's just kind of hang out here for a few breaths. Feel maybe this reinforcing stretch in the pecs on that right side. And then as you inhale, we're just going to bring the arm halfway back to where we started from, so kind of right over the shoulder. And then as you exhale, relax the arm back down. If you want to play around with it a little bit, now you could stretch the arm overhead some. And then bring it back down. Good, and then hang out here for a few more breaths. And especially if you're feeling any kind of intensity here at all, be really careful. We're going to start to roll over so that we're on our backs. So just being very careful, kind of sliding the hips to the left there. And trying to relax over top of this can be pretty intense. See if you can relax the muscles of the face. You can do anything at all with the legs. Maybe the knees stay bent. Maybe the legs are extended out. And we'll just take 2 more breaths. Good. And now if you want to, you can reach back behind you and move the ball, or you can just kind of scoot down a little bit on your mat and roll the ball up towards that upper corner of the shoulder blade. And we'll relax into this here. See if you can start to feel a little bit more even in the body. I know it feels kind of awkward at first to be doing this on one side only. But just stay with me. Let's take just a few more breaths. Good, and then if you want a little bit more intensity here, bring your heels so that they're just underneath your knees, and your knees are about hips width distance apart. And then all we're gonna do here is lift up. So we're gonna lift the hips up for a bridge pose. And if you have something nearby and want a little bit of support here, so it's just slightly more passive in your legs, go ahead and slide it underneath your sacrum. And if you don't have that, you can just stay hovering in that bridge pose, a little yin and yang, a little working on the lower half and relaxing on the upper half for just a few breaths. And now we're going to move the ball to that third location. Remember, that is more towards the upper portion of the shoulder blade there, so the supraspinatus. And I'm going to stay on my block for this one. You can remove your block and play around with it if you want, but we're only going to stay here for about 5 or 6 breaths, so go ahead and get into it. And feel free to explore anything along the way here. So if you think like some kind of movement might feel good, or you're just curious, go ahead and move that right arm. If it feels really good, just to stay right where you're at, and just to feel the body adapting here as we breathe, becoming more relaxed. Alrighty, so in whichever order makes sense for you, we're going to release the ball and the block, the blanket, the pillow, or just lower the hips down if you've got none of that. And again, we'll take a moment here. This one is usually pretty obvious for people, so close the eyes and notice the effects you feel here. And although everything is connected through this body-wide fascial system, usually you're going to feel the effects on the side you did the myofascial release on. So that right side is going to feel, probably for most of us, much closer down to the mat. The left side's probably feeling pretty uncomfortable now that you realize how tense you are over there. So let's even that out. So you guys can just roll onto your side if you want to. I'm gonna flip around so that you can see just a little bit better. But remember, we're gonna start laying on our side here. And remember, we're looking for the rhomboid. So we're looking for that space now to the left of the shoulder blade, to the left of the spine, and to the right of the shoulder blade, so right in between. I'm just gonna reach back here with my hand and place the ball, and keeping the knees approximately in line with the hip, roll onto my back, my upper back now. And then just let that left arm float out to the side. It's been a little bit longer now since we were working on the pecs, but still kind of reinforcing that opening now with this nice stretch. You can relax into it. If it's too intense, feel free to position the arm so that you're not feeling that deep of a stretch. Noticing the breath here. And then if you want some movement, go ahead and stretch the arm. Actually, I think we brought the arm up first, so let's do that first. And then open the arm back up. And then maybe stretch the arm overhead if that feels good. And bring it back, let it hover for another couple breaths. And again, we're going to be really careful with this one because the change in pressure you're going to feel right away. So carefully now moving on to your backs. You might need to readjust the ball just a little bit. So recognize that it's okay to feel lopsided here. We are just working on one side. We won't be lopsided for too long, too much longer anyway. Let's see if you can just relax into it. If you did explore movement in any of these on the right side, make sure you do it on this left side as well. And seeing again with each exhale, if you can feel the body just starting to almost take in the shape of the ball as the tissues start to adapt and everything starts to relax. Feel even the nervous system shifting from that state of protection to relaxation. Taking just a few more breaths here. And then we're going to slide the ball up just a few inches or just a new tender spot. Again, we're moving up more towards the outer corner of the shoulder blade there, moving into the traps a little bit more and relaxing into it. And then again, if you'd like a little bit more intensity here, or you are just curious about what it might feel like, grab a prop if you have one. Otherwise, again, the ankles will be underneath the knees. The knees are about hip width distance apart, and we're going to gently begin to lift the hips up. And you might stop short of being able to get that prop underneath you. That's fine. Do what you can here. Maybe slide a prop underneath you. Maybe just keep the hips hovering. This one feels usually pretty good. So we apply just a little bit more load on the tissues. Relax into this one. I was just about to say this is one of my favorites, but I think I've said that for most of them, so I guess I like it all, but this is one of my favorites as well. All right, so feel free to stay there. If this is what's working for you, stay here or come to that third spot. So sliding more up to the upper portion of the shoulder blade there, more towards the supraspinatus, or just to a new area that feels tender. No need to know exactly what that is or even where it is, just another place that feels good. Of course, you can remove the prop from underneath you if it's too intense. too much longer. And remember again, if you did take those movements on the other side, make sure you go ahead and incorporate them here. One more breath. Good. And then we're just going to reach underneath us, release the ball, release the prop if you have one, set those to the side, come to lying flat on your back again, and just take a moment to observe. Take a moment to notice from head to toe. Noticing the symmetries in the body. And even though we targeted primarily the upper torso, noticing the system-wide changes here. Let's take 3 rounds of breathing, inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 8. The eyes are closed, blink them open. Just begin to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Roll the wrists and the ankles. And gently turn the head side to side. Stretching the arms overhead, stretching the legs forward. Give yourself a nice deep stretch here. And as you exhale, bringing knees in towards the chest. Really gently rocking side to side for a moment. And then maybe rolling over onto your side or rocking all the way up. Coming back up to a seated position. And thank you guys so much for watching, for participating. Look forward to doing this one again with you. Namaste.